Diane, I'm listening to a podcast, Black Lodge Trivia Night. I've never heard so many game aspirations in my life.
Welcome back to Black Lodge Trivia Night. This is Art, and once again, I'm down to Matt. So we are going to do a little more hostile solo. Matt is giving it his best, trying out for the Rockettes kick line this holiday season. I like kicking, but I don't have the hamstrings for it. So you know what? I'm going to yield this one to Matt. Good luck. Hope to see you on the stage, Matt. But yeah, so last time what we were doing was at our crew, the DSF Noctua, they managed to get to the mission location, which doesn't really matter. But we got to the mission location, and when we arrived, we expected to, we determined it was going to be about a 54-day trip to the Lady Luck, which is the mission assigned to us by Leyland Okuda. It's a commercial ship that was traveling to Congress and lost signal. I want to bring up the right map. This is where we started, I think. But I think what we want is... Anyway, so when we got there, though, we made some determinations. We had a little bit of a fight between the captain, JM, and the navigator, Olivia. And then we got a second distress call from a mining ship, DSM, Deep Space Mining ship, the West Alliance. And they were requesting immediate rescue and sort of had a decision to make. The Lady Luck, the mission, a Leyland Okuda ship that we have been tasked to rescue, no response on comms. We're not getting much life from the ship. The West Alliance, we're definitely getting like a couple of strong life signals, and again, somebody reached out on comms saying, "Oh, thank God, we're really in spot here. We could really use your help." There was some sort of like gas flooding into their atmosphere, the ship's atmosphere, that might be damaging their scrubbers, so they could be on sort of like on borrowed time. And so we left it, having determined that we're going to be cutting it really close with the fuel burns, but we should be able to just squeak by if we go after the West Alliance and still be able to swing back to Lady Luck and get to a refueling station. So, again, and if you remember, Lady Luck was traveling from Serpentine, which is sort of a deserty, Arrakis-like kind of planet, to Congress, which is sort of a garden planet. So we never really determined what the natural resources that goes between them, but that's sort of what the obvious reason was for the ship, the Lady Luck, going back and forth. But yeah, so here we are. And, so we determined it was going to be about a 3-day journey to divert over to the West Alliance. And now I think what we need to do is we need to determine what's going on with the West Alliance. One of the things that security officer May brought up is we don't know who these people are. So I know that we're tasked, by law to render assistance, but we do have to be really careful because we don't know what we're walking into. That was her argument for not helping West Alliance and sticking to the rescue mission of Lady Luck. So yeah, let's just see what's going on with them. Let's see if there's any tables we can roll. There are, just so we know. Campaigns, government, there's one that's sort of like a basic... what's going on here? Let me see what a ship reaction does. No, that's not it. But there's one random people and locations. Is this the right one? Okay, so let's just say one of the people that responded was an engineer. And then who was the other person that was responding? A loader. Okay, so an engineer and loader. So we're not getting word from the captain. That's... Nobody's claimed to, hey, I'm captain of the ship. We gotta... And let's say it was an engineer who's working the radio. And then there's there is a table where you can sort of like, are these people good or bad? That's sort of what I was looking at. Let me see if I can bring that up in the rulebook. Reference, hostile solo. And I don't know, and it's not even that interesting. It's just a very general, like, are these people good or bad? And the problem is I don't know if it's, if you remember, there's sort of like two places to get tables. One is within your actual campaign, and the other is in the building plot section. So that's, and I think this is in the building plot section. And it's stupid because it's just a couple like throwaway tables right at the end. So it's not even that important. I just was hoping to use, you know, all the parts of the buffalo. You know, I wanted to, you know, whatever's here in the game, I want to. We're going to build out. Actually, that's another thing we're going to do. We're going to build out that ship in a second. Now that I see this stuff. I don't know why it's so hard. And I thought I sort of built out. Let me pop this out real quick. Apologies, I'm coming in a little hot on this. As always, it's always coming in a little hot, but this one in particular. But random people and locations. That's what I thought I thought that's what it was, but I guess not. But basically, let me look in the book really quick. So it's like an influencing attitudes is one, but let me see if there's another one. And the influencing attitudes is like, it's starting. But that's the starting attitude. So they're going to not be hostile to us because we're going to rescue them. But, and that's part of the shipping random tables. But basically what there is there's a table that lets you determine the motivations of the people you're interacting with. And it's dumb because I read this last night trying to prepare, even though I know I said a second ago I'm coming in hot. And it's just like the one thing I can't find. So why don't we start by what we're going to do. Okay, ask the D6 is what it's under. And so what you can do is I'll bring it up in the, pop this back in. And it's on page 54. And I'm not seeing Ask the D6 here on the... But I'll just show you how it works again, just because we want to make sure we're, taking advantage of all the systems that we can. So we just had Ask the D6 right there. So you can see it's like, when the player needs more information about a situation, we're going to roll a general 1d6 on the person. Okay, so we're getting somebody on the horn, and let's just get an idea. 4. Seems okay. All right, so, we're not getting anything crazy coming in off the radio. We're not getting a kind of laugh, after every statement, like we should definitely be suspicious of this guy. We're not getting stuff like that. So first impressions are, okay, we're dealing with somebody normal. So second part, let's create a ship. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to Planet's Outpost Noctua settings. This isn't a station, so let's create a folder. Ships. This one's going to be the DSM, again, Deep Space Mining, West Alliance. We're going to grid you know what, I'm going to cancel that for just a quick second, because what I want to do is I want to figure out what I did for this view scene. This is the schematic. So let's double this up. We're going to duplicate. We're going to make this DSM West Alliance. Now, what we're going to do is I think we're going to DSM West Alliance. What I think we're going to do let's delete this. We're going to activate this. And let's start setting this up. Just so you can, if it's of any interest, you can see how I did it. DSM West Alliance. We're going to make this a two deck ship. Now the question is, what do we want for, you know, the basic layout? So they give you sort of like some basic, like, this is orbital platforms here. We want to get to the ships. And, you know, so we're going to do a starship. So let's do, it's a mining ship. So the way I see it is it's going to be sort of like this one right here. It's going to have a lot going on in the middle, whether it's like, you know, drilling tools, stuff like that, and then a lot of storage. Or maybe is it like this one, deck 1, deck 2. I think it might be this one, because again, it's going to have a lot going on in the middle for all the mining. It's got to be able to store stuff. It's got to hold a ton of equipment. The question is, like, if you're, or would it tow it back? It's not that important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll do this one. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go with this one with the big triangle in the middle. So I'm going to pop this back out. And we're going to build that here in the ship. So we're going to go 1, 2. And then this one's a little closer. And they're going to make a diamond. And then we've got 2 in the back. Okay, so that's deck 1. And then deck 2 is actually a mirror of that. So let's do that real quick. Nope. Okay, so we've got our 2 decks. And so now that what we're going to do is we're going to start populating them. So first and foremost, we can there's a way to draw polygon and draw ellipse, draw freehand. Is that how I did it? Basically, you just want to... Nope. But basically, this is how it's going to connect. There's one, and now we can... So again, what we're establishing is that these are connected via passageways. Okay, and now we're going to finish it off by connecting the last 2. Okay, so there we go. So we've got the sort of connections in our ship. So let's do the same here. So I forgot to double click that one closed correctly. So let's try it again. Okay. And now we're gonna connect these 3. Connect these 2. Okay. So we've got our ships going on here. I don't know if I created roll tables for... Oh, I did. Okay. So we're gonna... start doing this. So we've got orbital platforms, we've got starships. So the first thing we need is... There's always, on starships, the first deck is an operations deck. So we're going to go to the operations deck. And that's going to be the first deck. So we'll call this... Let me pop this out just to get out of the way for a second. Let's just type really quickly... Oh. I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to call this Deck 1. I'm going to call this Deck 2. Obviously. That didn't work. I thought it would. I thought you could copy and then paste it. There we go. Okay, so we got Deck 2. This is the stuff that I thought made Hostile so fast. And it's sort of what makes me kind of curious about, like, you know, Across 1,000 Worlds. Like, because, you know, the idea of these is you want to be able to go anywhere. And there's just something, I've said this before, about the scope of deep space that makes me want to, you know, you have to be able to generate ships, stations, stuff like that. And again, it doesn't have to be like in the tightest detail, but it has to be enough to work with it. And I thought the systems here in Hostile were really interesting on doing that. Okay. So we've got, I'll bring this table back in. And again, we're going to go to the starships. We're going to start with the operations deck. Deck 1 is the operations deck. So we're going to draw results. We're going to start here. That's the stateroom block. Okay. And, you know, truthfully, I don't know if this will make any sense in the end, but this is what we're going to do. All right. So let's draw box. I'm going to call this stateroom block. Okay. What is this one? Small craft hangar. Okay. Small craft hangar. There we go. Next one is med bay. Can't type to save my life. There we go. Next one is going to be cargo supplies. Okay. Next one is going to be, let's do this side. Another stateroom block. I think we're gonna, let's see, cargo supplies. So we've gotten stateroom, small craft. It seems weird to have 2 staterooms. I'm gonna make this a cargo supply, second cargo supply. I don't know if I'm just misunderstanding staterooms, but to me that sounds like fancy accommodations. Let's see what we got next. Well, basically let's do a hypersleep chamber. Because we're gonna need that. And I was gonna say, I think more cargo supplies makes sense. And then let's do a crew lounge. Let's do this. Let's go cargo supply. Let's make this a crew lounge. Well, or is a stateroom block just... That might be any... Yeah, that might be just any... So let's have this one be like the captains, and then maybe this one is just like the grunts. Okay, so we've got 2 areas of sleeping, crew lounge. Let's swap this. Make this a small craft hangar, hypersleep chambers next to med bay. Get a lounge, 2 stateroom blocks. There we go. Okay, so that's deck 1. Hangar up front for small craft coming in and out. We got the hypersleep med bay. We got the staterooms on either side. We got a lounge, bunch of supplies. Okay, let's go to deck 2. Now, deck 2 is going to be specific to a mining ship. So let's bring that up. There we go. Let's pop this back out. And let's take a look at what we've got here. So these are the choices here. We're going to start with way up here. So remember, above it is a small craft hangar. So we kind of want to make sure it checks. What did they give us? An airlock. To me, that makes sense. And honestly, I was going to sort of override it to an airlock, potentially, if we didn't get that. What do we got next down here? Above it is a hypersleep chamber. What do we get here? Ore Bay 1. Yeah, we can start doing that. Ore Bay 1. Okay. Let's make this Ore Bay 2. I don't know if it's gonna... let's make another Ore Bay 1. I don't know if it matters. We can work it out if it does. So let's do this one here. Drill machinery, okay. Don't know if I'm spelling things right, but there we go. Let's do this side. An airlock. Okay, another airlock, why not? You know what, let's make, we're gonna, yeah, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have another airlock. We're gonna put the airlock here. See what this is? A workshop, that, okay. What do we got going on here? Another airlock, okay. And finally, let's put this airlock in the back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make this Ore Bay 2. And we're going to make this drone and vehicle garage. Or does it make sense because we got the small craft hangar, maybe the drone and vehicle garage should be up front as well? Let's do that. I don't know if it actually makes any, if it actually matters, but that's what we'll do. So we've got a couple of, got a lot of airlocks in the back. That seems, let's reverse a couple just to mix up. We got an airlock. There we go. I mean, we covered all the possibilities here, but it just feels like cargo supplies. Actually, that makes sense, right? Like, yeah, if you got cargo, you might need to get it out. So, okay, I could see that. All right, so we've got our DSM West Alliance built out. We're getting, guy claims to be an engineer and a loader. They're the ones we're getting signals from on the radio. Our initial impression is that they seem to be okay. Okay. And yeah, they're experiencing flooding with their atmosphere. Okay, so let's go back to our ship. And I think now what we need to do is we need to determine some stuff about this mission. Encounter table, ship malfunctions. I think that's how we determined the problem, so we're good with that. So let's roll shipping missions. We've got that going already. Got that. Oh, resolution. Okay, that's where I stuck it. So this is, yeah. Okay, so let's look at the situation. The worst possible thing happens. Okay. So we're making the approach. And let's say there's some kind of explosion on board the West Alliance. And it starts sending the ship spinning and traveling away from us, and it's going to cost us an extra burn to adjust. Because again, if you remember from last session, that was one of the things that we were getting really tight on was burn. So an extra burn, I'm just jotting stuff down and I'll fill it in between. Okay, so yeah, so there's an explosion, and so JM is now trying to like recalculate like how the hell are we gonna, so the thing is spinning on like all of its axes, it's blowing air, so it's it's accelerating and stuff. So JM's like, okay, we need to connect with this ship, and maybe this is part of the burn, and maybe use our thrusters to help stabilize it until we can shut down this leak. And Tom is there, and he's realizing, like, this is getting out of hand very quickly. But, again, because he's always shaken in his confidence and command, he's made the call, and damn it, we're going to stick with that call. And probably Adea is like, we need to bail. We need to bail right now. Because, again, she's scared. And again, she's always trying to cover up the reasons for her fear, but she's like, this is not what we're supposed to be doing, and it keeps getting worse, and we shouldn't have to die to save these two people. We got seven souls here, plus whatever might be on the Lady Luck, and we're throwing it all away to potentially go for these two. Which is a cold way to look at it, but that's sort of how it is. So what we have to do now is, this is another part of this game that I thought was interesting. We're going to do a scene resolution. And this game sort of, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about this at the end of the setup. So the way this game wants you to do it, a lot of games you'll sort of step through the process and roll as you go, and like jazz, you'll riff on something that comes up in the moment. What they talk about here is sort of making up a plan and then resolving the scene with like a one or two rolls, and then working backward to fill in the details. And so make up the plan. So the plan is going to be this: JM's going to dock. attempting to dock with a ship that is now spinning a little bit wildly. Once they secure a soft dock, they're going to try and get on board in spacesuits. Doc Brown is going to head toward the bridge, which had signs of life with the engineer and loader. And they're not going to open the doors, but they're going to try and get some kind of reading information through the doors if they can, see how people are doing. Then the engineer, Adea and Dell are going to head to... Let's go back to the ship. I guess I don't need this. Adea and Dell are going to go... to... basically going to go to engineering. Which, interestingly enough, is not... But let's just assume that at some part there's like engines and stuff like that. So they're going to go there. They're going to try and do a couple different things. They're going to see if they can get the engines back up and running to help stabilize. They're going to see if they can correct what's going on with the atmosphere. See if, they're going to bring scrubbers over just in case, the scrubbers on the West Alliance are shot. And they're going to try and basically get life support up and running. So JM going to Doc Brown, check on the crew. And Tom will be, with JM, sort of overseeing, facilitating communication, stuff like that, back on board the Noctua. Adea and Dell, engineering. Okay. So that's the basic plan. So that's what we've got to do. Because we rolled that the worst thing possible happens, we are definitely going to choose... The difficulty of the plan is shaky. Quite a few things could go wrong. Okay, so what that means then is the difficulty roll we're trying to hit is a 10, not the typical 8. Is the plan's dangerous? This plan is definitely dangerous. It was probably dangerous before the worst possible thing happens, but it's definitely dangerous now. Like, this is sort of an out of control situation. So what we need to do is we roll a 2d6, and you want to exceed the required roll. Apply 1 + 1 for each character that brings a significant skill or a successful roll of that skill. I want to go with the successful roll of that skill. So we're going to start with Tom's pilot. Not Tom, JM's piloting check. Okay, not great. A sum 7 effects -1. So I'm going to check, because if you remember in the book, they give you sort of a list of what happens when you don't. And I think that was on around page 40. Okay, so page 50. I'll bring that up in the book. Or is this? Yeah, it's not that far from here. So page 50. A -1 is no but. Okay, so the answer is no. The piloting roll, is he able to... Okay, so we're not going to get a +1 from that. So a no but on pilot. Again, I was about to start stepping through the process and riffing, and that's not what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to do a no but for pilot. Okay, so now we're going to do a medical check for Doc Brown. That's pretty good. Okay, medical is a 3 is a yes. Okay. Engineering. We're going to get a roll from Dell and Adea. What's Dell? Let's say it's his electronics. Just gets it. Okay. Yes for electronics. And then Adea's will do engineering. Nice. Okay. Okay, so you can do... Okay, so we've done that. And if you see... it was on page 52. You can get a max of +3. So we're going to get 3 yeses and a no. So we're going to get a +3 on our roll. We don't have characters unsuited to the mission. And I'm not going to do a +1 for the use of a crucial kit. Plus, we're already at +3. Okay. So let's do a 2d6 roll. We're trying to beat a 10. (2d6 + 3). Let's see what we get. We just get it. Okay. Whew. Okay. All right. So it's a success. All right. The dice roll is made, and the mission is either success or a failure. So the mission is going to be a success. So we've determined that, but now we have to sort of walk through what happened. Did anyone get injured? Was anyone killed? Was there evidence left behind? So general questions of how did it go. The more difficult the plan is to complete, the more chances a consequence will follow. So, So what we're going to do is we're going to roll a 2d6 for the possible consequences of a mission, whether or not it was successful. So you do this regardless. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to this table here, but there's certain things you have to look for. We're going to do a +2 if the plan was a success. And if the plan was safe and no one got hurt, roll 1d6 plus it. It's not that, but I just wanted to get into that. So if the plan is safe, you start with an automatic 6, right? So you take death, serious injury, and minor injury off the table. We don't have that luxury, but we do get a +2. So it's very unlikely somebody died, right? So let's roll 2d6 and add to that. We rolled a 10. Seriously upset or antagonize an NPC. Okay. We're going to seriously upset an NPC. Or antagonize an NPC. So how's that going to work? Okay, so now we've got the end. We've got the end results. Nobody was injured or killed. We didn't lose anything. We didn't partly fail the mission. We didn't damage our ship. So all in all, it's a pretty successful mission. The question is now, why is an NPC antagonized? What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some oracles just to see if there's something there that can help us. I seem to have asked the person twice. Or I have resolution twice, that's the problem. I'm going to take this one off the books. I think it'll just let me delete this. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So let's get a couple of inspiration tables going. I'm going to roll twice. And see what happens. Okay. Debt, kind, predator. Okay. All right. Predator. That's the one that's going to jump out at us. Okay. So here's how it goes. Tom's like, okay, JM, let's bring us in. See if you can match rotations. I know it's going to be a tough thing. Dell, get ready for the soft lock. And they've got sort of like a soft tube that they can get going between the two airlocks. And, JM, I know it's going to be tricky. Let's, if you can, match rotation as best as you can. And so JM doesn't quite pull that off, right? Like eventually he gets it, but maybe, let's do that. Maybe there's a little damage to the soft airlock equipment. It's not catastrophic. But yeah, so maybe that's maybe that's part of the, but he does, and again, his result was a no, but. So no, but eventually they get it, and eventually, the soft lock is established. Maybe they lose some time. They get inside, and they immediately start breaking into their different directions. Adaya and Dell head to engineering, and what they find there is that they are able to get... They're able to get a reading. The ship, yes, the scrubbers are screwed up, and the atmosphere is shot, but it's not beyond salvaging. But what they discover, and this is the antagonized NPC, they discover that it was sabotage. Somebody on board the ship, it's like, suddenly Dell's sort of looking through this, and he's like, diagnostics say that this is a deliberate attempt, like this should not have failed in this capacity. And so they sort of piece together that it was a bit of sabotage. And that kind of makes Adele, is it Adele? Is that who? Sorry, not Adele, Adaya, the engineer. She's like, holy shit, we're not supposed to be here in the first place. And now you're telling me that there's a saboteur on board who was trying to kill the whole mission and everybody on board the ship. So she's starting to really panic. And what I would like to do, there's not really, I've been reading, Twilight 2000, there's not really a coolness under fire. We're not going to roll. But she's starting to lose it a little bit, right? But they managed to get things under control. They managed to sort of... Maybe what they do is they figure out a way to, like, they're going to vent the gases out of the ship everywhere except the bridge. They know the bridge is in decent shape. Replace the scrubbers, and then maybe re-pressurize the ship using... the soft lock between the Noctua and the West Alliance. So they're able to get at, or maybe, I don't know how this stuff might work. Maybe there's spare Atmo tanks on board the ship in case you need to do this. But basically, they restore the atmosphere. And so once they get all that, then it's a matter of like... It's a matter then of sort of stabilizing the orbit. With the explosion. So maybe part of that is they, repair the hull so it's not blowing more air out. And JM then has to sort of, they sort of separate a little bit. And then JM in my head, what has to happen is they have to separate the ships, but JM's got to be on board the new ship to pilot it into like a correct course. So in my head, maybe JM, through the soft lock goes over to the West Alliance and is able to sort of either autopilot or through Tom's able to punch in a few commands to just sort of separate the ship and, hit the, stabilize rotation button or whatever. So we've got the two ships, the Noctua sort of drifts away and sort of slows its rotation and finally stabilizes. JM gets to the West Alliance, which is just spinning in all sorts of directions. And given some time, he now that the hull's repaired, they're not blowing atmosphere, he sort of stabilizes everything and brings it back toward the Noctua. So they're sort of side by side. It's much easier to get. They reestablish the soft lock. It's much easier this time. And the crews are able to go back and forth between the ships as necessary. So Doc Brown gets the two survivors, the engineer and the loader, and she gets them to sickbay. Are there any other survivors? 1 through 3, yes. 4 through 6, no. 4. No. So there's only 2 survivors left on board the ship. And she gets them to the sick bay, and she's doing the basic checks. And she notices that maybe when they found the 2 people in the crew, the engineer had been bleeding badly, and it looked like it might have been from an injury. But Doc Brown starts to look at it and realizing this actually might be a kind of wound. Like, it looks like it might have been an intentional wound. And then as she's putting that together, she turns and she sees that the loader has picked up a scalpel, and he screams, "Why did you have to save us?" And he lunges at her. And we'll cut to black there. No idea why he did that, but that's the thing. So the loader was the saboteur. And, the engineer maybe was able to call for help, and it appears that the loader attacked him, but it was too late at that point. The call had been made. And, so there we go. We'll fade to black with the loader going after Doc Brown. So there you go. So that's an example of, they call it in the book. There's, it's a phrase that they use. And it's sort of something from the middle. Fortune in the middle. So that's the thing. You sort of establish what the basic plan is. Is it dangerous or not dangerous? And then you roll the general results, and then you work backwards and fill in the details. Now, the trick with that, so I wasn't sure, I thought it worked just fine, but I do feel like the advantage you get from it is obviously it's quick, right? And that's a problem I have, is I tend to get into the weeds too much. But I do think there is something fun about, okay, roll your pilot check. Okay, that failed in the moment. Let's spin from there, the next detail. Let's, and you sort of build the narrative as you go. But this was very interesting to sort of say, okay, we've got these criteria, A, B, C, D, E. How do we fit those together into a puzzle and make it all work? And I thought that was really interesting. So I feel like there's definite advantages to both ways. As somebody who likes to get into the weeds, I feel like I missed the granularity a little bit, but it's probably for the best. So there we go. Another session of Hostel in the books. That's going to do it for 2025. We might get something up right in the beginning of 2026, but this is going to be it for 2025. So this was, not always the best couple of years on the personal front for me, and a lot going on for everybody these last couple of years, but it's been a really good year in particular for gaming, and for that I'm very thankful. So hope 2025 was a great year for you guys out there. We appreciate everybody who checks this stuff out. We really do, and hope you're having fun watching it. We're having a great time doing it. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you found our channel, like and subscribe if that's your thing. If you prefer audio versions of this stuff, just search for BlackLodge Trivia Night wherever you get your podcasts. We should show up. We have a Discord if you want to jump in and shoot the breeze about RPGs, CRPGs, just about anything. Jump on in. The link should be in the show notes. Follow us on the socials if you want to do that. But otherwise, we hope everybody's having a really great holiday season. Again, we really appreciate everybody who checks this stuff out. And we're definitely looking forward to getting everybody back together on the mics sometime in 2026, hopefully earlier than later. So thanks again. Take care. Happy holidays. The in-session music was provided by Tabletop RPG Music and composed by Ian Fisher. You can find the Patreon at www.patreon.com/tabletop RPG music. That's all one word.